a layperson living in New York City or Austin, Texas, or wherever I am, and let's maybe zoom into the U.S. just to keep the kind of question here contained. What what should I be like? What are the top three things that I should be like looking out for my water? I actually get this question asked a lot as a water guy. They're
Mhm.
like, what in your drinking water, like out of the tap, should I be worried about lead because they think of Flint, Michigan? Like, what are the major things people should be looking out for?
There's so many things that can be in there, right? And you can do a laboratory test. Things, I mean, Tap Score or Simple Lab, like they do these wonderful tests. They can be quite expensive, right? $300-400. Um, and that's not something you can really make cheaper. You can't use test strips for a pool to find your levels of certain things, especially like PFAS. Um, the things I worry about are the things that the EPA or the local water systems are not mandated to treat. So a lot of the new modern contaminants, they operate on the human body at such a low level, meaning parts per trillion level. You're talking about one drop of water in 20 Olympic swimming pools is a contamination level that would exceed what the limit should be for your health. So it's those modern contaminants that I worry about more than the traditional ones, just because they take new technology to filter out of water, and that technology is still quite a few years away from even being mandated um, by the state. The state has started testing a lot of contaminants, but not all of the contaminants they test for have mandates for their maximum action levels.
And
So yeah, those are the ones I think about.
you're referring to like PFAS and PFOS here. Is that kind of what you're talking?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. That's the new major thing that we're looking at are those forever chemicals. They don't break down in the environment, so they tend to go through water supplies. And the problem is, we've got say these PFAS from say firefighting foam. Works amazing for fighting fires. But if you look at Air Force bases, we have all of those firefighting chemicals going into the groundwater, and since they don't break down in the environment, we have those leaching into water supplies, and there's no real way to get them out of the water supply. If that's your source water, that's your source water. You can't just say we're not going to pull water from this area because the area is too big. So yeah, those are the ones I think about the most. Those are the hardest ones to remove. But obviously things like lead levels. I mean, if you have high lead levels, your body doesn't have a lead requirement, right? Um, Luckily, lead's generally easy to mitigate. It's something you can swap a couple of pipes in the house, and bring lead levels down dramatically. But yeah, the modern stuff is much harder to get out, especially at scale.
And I was actually asked this question the other day, and they said, we've covered PFAS and PFOS on the podcast. It's obviously a big topic that comes up. Um, Somebody was like, what really is, we obviously can imagine that drinking fire retardant is probably not good. Um, but what really is the issue? Like, and like you said, one drop over, I think 2020 Olympic swimming pools.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if I have less than one drop, is it fine? Is it like I should just have zero if I drink this stuff? Like, what exactly happens? Like, what's the problem here?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the inversion. This is where forever chemicals are a lot more dangerous than they may seem at these low concentrations. This is a situation where the dose does not make the poison.
Mm.
A lot of these chemicals they mimic hormones in your body, so very small amounts of these chemicals are able to attach themselves to the hormone receptors within your body and cause your body to do things kind of on its own. So if you think about hey, like how a vaccine works or how any type of hormonal treatment works, you're you're shortcutting that with chemicals that are coming in at a certain time, say during gestation or a certain time in one's life, and those effects on the body they're generated by the body, right? It's just that little bit of chemical coming in, attaching to a receptor that it shouldn't be attaching to at that point in life and causing whole system issues. So, endocrine disrupting chemicals are not necessarily dangerous in that they're poison. They're dangerous in that they change the way that your body works internally. Unlike, say, lead or mercury or something where it's building up in, say, a thyroid gland, it's not about that it's building up in your body. It's that it's attaching to receptors that should be attached to by natural hormones, depending on which stage of life one is in.
I want to touch on something that you said earlier, and especially since we're talking about the effects of these chemicals on the body. You had mentioned earlier that chlorine, for example, is necessary for sanitizing the water. However, it's not something that the body needs or is a requirement for the body. What what is a requirement for the body? And you'd mentioned this point on distilled water too, is right. You've taken everything out, and that's also tastes weird. Uh,
Mhm,
there's all this talk about like remineralization of water. Like
mhm.
what does your body need from water?
So, if there's a huge amount of discussion around this about how, say distilled water is bad for you, or pure reverse osmosis water, which is close to distilled water,
Mm.
is actively bad for you because it strips minerals out of your body and actually takes them away. And the hard part about this argument is that that is technically true, right? So it is technically true that if you were consisting or if you were subsisting on a diet of no food whatsoever, and say you were doing a 30-day water fast, the pure distilled water or pure H2O, it will strip some of those minerals away from you. Um, but over 90% of our mineral intake is via food.
Right.
So if you're eating food, your mineral intake is there. It's good. The pure distilled or reverse osmosis water wouldn't be bad for you. That being said, I still remineralize my water. All the machines I build have remineralizing cartridges because I like the way it tastes. I like the way that Evian tastes versus Dasani. Um, yeah, I think it makes the water taste better. I think it's a little softer. So I add those minerals back in to change the way the water tastes, to raise the pH a little bit from the reverse osmosis process, which brings it down a little bit. So yeah, it's a pure preference of mine. It's a preference of I think most people. If you put a bunch of water next to each other and say have distilled all the way up to heavily remineralized water, most people will prefer the remineralized version. I don't put a lot of weight on the science of it. I put a lot of weight on just what people like to drink.
Let's jump into kind of what you're working on then, right? You said all of your
Yeah,
have remineralization. What exactly is Aqueduct Research, and what are you working on?
yeah. So I'm trying to build essentially the perfect machine to sit inside of someone's house and to solve the problem of drinking water. I include cooking in this as well because that's another direct consumption of water. Less than 1% of the water that comes into someone's house is used for drinking. So my opinion is if we've got this big system that is huge, this big water infrastructure system, we would have to control every tendril of that system to deliver perfect water to someone's house. And in the modern environment with modern contaminants, it's just, I don't think something that's going to be possible. The scale is just too large, it's too complex. But if we want to filter just the 1% that comes to our house that we're drinking, what should we do to make that perfect? Right. So we don't need to use these disinfection chemicals like chlorine because it's in a sealed container. It's only a small amount of water relative to everything that's coming in. Um, so right now I'm working on building all stainless steel systems, to get away from microplastics as much as humanly possible. So I'm building laboratory grade reverse osmosis systems for homes.
Mhm.
Like I said, I'm doing all stainless steel right now. In the future, we may move to some other stuff that will make the machines a lot cheaper and easier to say maintain yourself. But yeah, Aqueduct Research is trying to build just the perfect home water system, starting with a very high end product to try to say, hey, we've got the best here, and then working our way down to something that is more accessible, with materials that still don't leach into the drinking water. Um, but still, remove all of the broadest spectrum of things from water. We want to be able to set this machine anywhere and say, whatever your source water is, as long as it's coming from the city and it's not, ocean water, then anything coming out of this machine will be not only safe to drink, but will taste good. Technically, our machines could probably filter seawater. You could throw the feed into a lake, a pond, whatever. They're not built for that. They're built for using municipal or well water. But the idea is we want to build one solution that you set it down and